Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get started this morning by officially welcoming all of you guys. Sawadee Kap, Sawadee Kap. Welcome to Wat Tung Yu. Nice to see all of you guys here this morning. This is a third day of a 5-day course that I've been teaching here at the temple. And I know some of you guys might just be here for the morning for our normal regular Wednesday class. And that's fine. You guys are welcome to come and go as you please. We're going to start our class with meditation. And then I'm going to move into a talk about the 3 poisons or the 3 unwholesome roots, also referred to as the 3 fires. These are the 3 high-level problems that the Buddha discovered about the unenlightened mind and what keeps it in the unenlightened mind. And it's by understanding these and how to eliminate them that the mind can then move to the enlightened mental state. The enlightened mind is where the mind's peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. You no longer experience any discontent feelings. So by the time you experience enlightenment, the mind's no longer experiencing any anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. All these discontent feelings in others are completely eliminated from the enlightened mind. You'll notice focus, concentration, clarity of mind, and deep memory. Your personal, professional relationships will really blossom. They'll really improve because your mind's no longer doing things that are being hostile or aggressive or harsh or bitter to other people. But you need to do that through training of the mind. By the time you get to enlightenment, you're not even in a bad mood anymore. You've uprooted the causes and conditions that are producing a bad mood. So understanding the 3 poisons or the 3 unwholesome roots are an important aspect of your journey on the path to enlightenment. So I'd like to welcome all of you guys here, and then all of you that are joining us online. Welcome to everyone. If you'd like to join for meditation, we're going to start with the meditation session. We start our meditation with some chanting, and the chanting that we do is on a sheet over there on the table. There's a laminated sheet. Looks like some people are going to maybe hand those out, so you guys will have those. These are the Pali chants. This is the language that the original teachings of the Buddha are captured in, and we chant these as a way to ease the mind into meditation and actually get more benefit out of the meditation itself. During the lifetime of the Buddha, they used chanting as a way to commit the teachings to memory because everything that he taught was oral. And when he was teaching, they needed to remember his teachings word for word for word. They didn't write down the teachings during his life. So every 2 weeks, they would come together and they would chant his teachings word for word as a way to commit them to memory. If you look at these chants and you read the English translations, you can see that there's a lot of respect and admiration and gratitude for the Buddha. I don't think that the Buddha actually created these chants himself. They were probably created by his students either during his life or after his death, because if you learned from a teacher that helped you move from the anger and sadness and frustration and all those other discontent feelings to the peace and joy of the enlightened mind, you'd have a lot of respect for that person too. He didn't want anything from his students. He didn't expect anything from his students. He just shared with loving kindness and compassion to help his students move from this unenlightened state to the enlightened mind. And if you were able to get to a point where your mind was peaceful and joyful permanently, you would probably have a lot of respect and admiration for that teacher that helped you to do that. So I suspect that his students created these either during his life or after his death. So we chant these. They're not a rite, a ritual, or a ceremony or worship. It's not prayer or anything like that. It's not asking Gautama Buddha to come do anything. He's dead and gone. He can't do anything for you now at this point. He left his teachings to be able to help you learn and develop your mind, to be able to get to enlightenment. And these chants are just to ease the mind into meditation and get more benefit out of the meditation itself. Once we do the chants, we'll go into meditation, and I'll provide you guidance while we're actually meditating so that you'll know how to meditate as we're meditating. But then there's going to be a period of time of quiet. We'll just all be meditating together. Those of us here at the temple and everyone online will just all be meditating together. And then we'll come out of the meditation with some chanting as well. In terms of your body positioning for meditation, there's 4 positions that the Buddha taught: seated, lying, standing, and walking. I'm actually going to be teaching walking meditation this afternoon, so you're more than welcome to come, and you're more than welcome to stay for the rest of the day or tomorrow or next day, as much as you'd like or as little as you like. This 4 positions, they're used at different times for different reasons because you can't always be in the same position. You're going to need different positions. But oftentimes people are learning in the seated position, and I see all of you guys are pretty much sitting either on the floor or in a chair. So I'll just give you a little bit of light guidance on kind of body position. There's not just one fixed way to sit. It's up to each individual to find what's comfortable for them. Everybody's going to find something a little bit different that's comfortable for you. But just a little bit of pointers for you is that if you're on the floor, you might just cross your legs lightly rather than have them real tight, because that will inhibit the circulation. Some people like to put their legs off the mat, which gets the hips up in the air and lessens the angle at the hips, the knees, and the ankles. And this can also help the circulation flow in the lower body. If you're in a chair, usually people like to put their feet flat on the floor or lightly cross at the ankles. It's really whatever's comfortable for you. You can sit however you like. The hands and the arms, the Buddha put his right hand over his left with his thumbs together, and then he put this into his lap. And if this is comfortable for you, you could use it. But again, it's not about everybody doing it exactly the same way. You might not find this to be comfortable. So there's other options as well. You might decide to put your palms on your thighs or on your knees. You might put your palms up. Some people just put their palms resting in their lap. So whatever's comfortable, the lower body and hands and arms should be nice and comfortable. Not painful and not luxurious, but nice and comfortable in the middle. The upper body should be erect. This keeps the mind attentive and alert during the meditation, whereas if you were slouched, the mind would have a tendency to be dull or lethargic. But if you were real rigid, the mind would be overactive or uptight. So you'd like the upper body to be erect, with the sternum up and the shoulders back. This keeps the mind attentive and alert during your meditation. It also helps you to breathe in through the nose and out through the nose so that you can meditate. And then what I'm going to do here is just ease into meditation with the chanting, which you're welcome to join along with. And then I'll come back with some guidance on the meditation itself. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakeva Otang Mahakevanang Apivateyami Savakato Mahakevata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakavato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Mahakeva Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vichacharanang Sammuno Sakato Rokavitu Anutero Purisa Dhammasati Satatawa Manusanang Poto Bhagavati. With the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, in the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath. A nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, Just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then, whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathe in gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then, whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Once the breath is well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. ระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธมหาเขวาโหตังมหาเขวันหังอภิวาเทมิสวากขาโตมหาเขวตาธัมโมธัมมังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหาเขวโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมหะเขวาอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารณังสัมมุโนสกาโตโรกาวิโตอนุเตโรปุริสาธัมมาสติสัตตาตาวามานุสนังพุทโธภาควาติ Okay, if you guys would like to ease your way out of meditation, I will once again welcome all of you guys here at the temple, and those of you guys online, welcome to everyone, including those of you guys that joined us since we started meditating. Welcome to everyone. For those of you guys that this is your first time to the temple, I'd like to just let you know that there's a bathroom in the very back of the room, the last door on the right. You're welcome to use the restroom anytime you like. There's even larger restrooms outside the classroom. If you go outside and follow the signs around to the main bathrooms, you're welcome to use the bathroom in the main part of the temple. We even have water here that is provided by our students that you're welcome to help yourself to. I even see some food starting to show up here, that students are starting to share some food with you guys, so feel free to help yourself to any snacks and food that is provided by our students. So today's class, as I mentioned, it's the third day of a 5-day course that I'm teaching, helping students to establish a foundation in the path to enlightenment. We have a topic that we're going to be discussing this morning called the 3 poisons: craving, anger, and ignorance. These are the 3 high-level issues that you'll see that's in the unenlightened mind, and the Buddha discovered these in order to help you understand the remedies and solutions to them so that you can uproot them and eliminate them from the mind. As you do, as you're eliminating these pollutions out of the mind, you'll see that there's more peace and calm, serenity, and contentedness with joy in the mind, to the point where ultimately when you completely eradicate them from the mind will be enlightened, that the mind will be peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy permanently. You'll never experience discontent feelings ever again. So the goal on the path to enlightenment It's not a bunch of beliefs where you believe a bunch of things and you hope that something good happens when you die. The Buddha didn't teach a bunch of rules or commandments that everybody should follow. And if everybody follows these rules and commandments, the world will become a more peaceful place. Instead, what he's doing is he's teaching you what it took for him to be able to get to this enlightened mental state where his mind's peaceful and joyful. And what he's doing is, rather than explaining to you the way the world should be, he's explaining to you the way the world is. And in this talk, what you're going to understand is how the mind is, why the mind functions the way it does, and why does the mind experience certain feelings and emotions. And then you'll be able to understand what those pollutions are, and then the solutions of how to uproot them and eliminate them from the mind. And as you're learning the teachings of the Buddha, you should never believe anything that you're hearing. You shouldn't believe anything from me. You shouldn't believe anything in the books that I write. Anybody who teaches anything about anything, you should never believe those things, because belief, you don't know what's true or false. And if you don't know what's true or false, you haven't gotten to wisdom. In order to be able to awaken your mind to enlightenment, you need to be able to get to wisdom. And the way that you do that is through learning something, through investigating it and examining it, through independently verifying whether it's true or false on your own. And then you integrate it into your life as part of your life practice. And then as you're practicing these teachings, this is where you see the improvement to the condition of your mind. And you'll have wisdom to know that these teachings are true. So as I teach you today, it's important that you don't believe anything that I share with you. As I'm sharing these teachings on the 3 poisons, you'll be able to hear what it is that I'm sharing with you, and you'll be able to directly reflect on what it is that I'm sharing. And you'll be able to compare it to your life and what you experience, because right now, if you know that your mind is unenlightened, when I describe what I describe in these 3 poisons, you'll be able to see these connections and these correlations to what you experience in your day-to-day life. And then you'll be able to know through your learning, through your reflection, you'll have independently verified that what I'm sharing with you is true, and your mind has these poisons. And then you'll be able to implement the solutions that the Buddha shares, these tools and techniques to be able to help you awaken the mind to this wisdom of the path to enlightenment. So as you're learning the teachings of the Buddha, what you're doing is you're learning what's called the natural laws of existence. He's describing to you the natural laws of the world. He's explaining to you the way the world is. Because when you live in a world that you don't understand, you'll struggle. You'll have difficulties. When you're experiencing the anger and the sadness and frustration and all those other discontent feelings, this is the mind struggling because it just doesn't understand what it doesn't understand. So as you learn more and more and you gain wisdom through learning, reflecting to independently verify and practice, this is where the wisdom will help you to navigate the world more readily. Because when you lack wisdom, you're going to naturally make unwise decisions that produces unwholesome results in your life. But when you have wisdom, you will then make wiser decisions that produces wholesome results. You've been doing the same thing related to other things, other natural laws in the world, not just the natural laws of the Buddha that you need to do this with, but you've already been doing it with other natural laws, and you may not have realized it, that you've been learning, you've been reflecting, and you've been practicing. The natural law of gravity, at one time, none of us understood the natural law of gravity, and we struggled with this natural law. When we were 1 year old, 2 years old, 3 years old, we really struggled with this natural law of gravity. We fell down, we hit our head, we broke our toys, we might have busted our knees open or our elbows. We had all kinds of difficulties with this natural law of gravity. But slowly but surely, we didn't believe that any natural law of gravity existed. We could see the truth for ourselves that it existed. And we gained wisdom of this natural law. And we started making wiser decisions about this natural law. Because when we lacked wisdom, we naturally made unwise decisions. We fell down, we broke our toys, we had all kinds of difficulties and struggles. But as we gained wisdom of this natural law, we started looking at the surface of the sidewalk. We started tying our shoes a little bit tighter. We stopped being so giddy and bouncing around like little kids, like so excited. And we started making wiser decisions. And then we started experiencing better results. We're now able to climb ladders. We're able to ride bicycles. We're able to get on airplanes and fly all over the world because we understand the natural law of gravity. We no longer struggle with it because we have wisdom. Even this glass of water behind me, I put it behind me, not because anybody told me to do this, but because I understand it's a wise decision because I have wisdom of this natural law of gravity. If I put this glass of water in front of me, I'll more likely knock it over. So when you have wisdom, you're going to naturally make wiser decisions, such as putting this glass of water behind me, not because anybody told me to do it, not because it's a rule or it's a commandment, just because I have wisdom of how the world works. we make wiser decisions in the world. And you've been doing this with the natural law of gravity. And now you're at the point where you don't struggle with the natural law of gravity. You don't have difficulties because your mind's fully awake to this natural law. You have wisdom and you make wise decisions. And at one time you did have struggles, but now you don't. So you've gradually learned, you've gradually practiced, and you've experienced this gradual progress with this natural law of gravity. And in order for you to awaken to enlightenment, you're going to need to do the same thing, where there's gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress, where you don't believe in anything, but instead you're learning, you're reflecting to independently verify, and you practice. And this will acquire wisdom in the mind, and now you'll navigate the world more readily, and you'll be able to get to the point where your mind's peaceful and joyful permanently. If you dedicate time and effort to learning and developing, you'll be able to experience that mental state more and more. And this is where the Buddha's teachings are very profound, because oftentimes we're taught in things like this to just believe a bunch of things and then hope that something good happens when we die. But the teachings of the Buddha aren't based in that. Instead, you can learn his teachings, you can practice them, and as you see the condition of your mind and the condition of your life gradually improving, you'll know that these teachings are the truth. So as I speak today, as I share these teachings with you, this is a discussion. This is an opportunity for you to learn and investigate the teachings, because you are on your own journey to enlightenment. A teacher is just here to guide you and point the way. It's like a tour guide that we're pointing the way of showing you how to make your way to enlightenment, but it's you that's doing the actual work. So I encourage you, as I speak and as I share the teachings with you, that you reflect on them and you compare it to your life and see if what I'm sharing with you is actually the truth based on what it is that you experience in your day-to-day life. And as we go, you're welcome to ask questions. I have these microphones in this white bowl here. For those of you guys at the temple, if you could get a microphone and turn it on, you'll be able to ask your question. We'll be able to hear you here at the temple. They'll be able to hear you online as well. There's a gray button on the front. You just press it. You'll see some lights come on. You just wait a second or two, and then you hold it up to your chin. We'll be able to hear you here, and they'll be able to hear you online. And then you can just keep the microphone with you, because either you or somebody around you might have a question, and you can just share the microphones around. And then for those of you guys online, you can ask questions by putting those into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom. Or in Zoom, you can electronically raise your hand and open up your microphone, and we'll be able to hear you here at the temple. So let me just share kind of a little bit of what are they? What are the three poisons before we actually get into them? They're referred to as the three poisons, or the three unwholesome roots, or the three fires, also known as defilements. These are a high-level description of the pollution of what's in the mind, and learning what these pollutions are and then eradicating them is what's going to help you to be able to experience this enlightened mind. There's a teaching that the Buddha shares called the Four Noble Truths, which gives you kind of a window into the unenlightened mind, which I shared yesterday with the students that were here, and it helps you to be able to see what is kind of plaguing the mind from the craving, desire, attachment. It kind of gives you a little bit of a window, kind of gets right to the heart of it. In four simple statements, the Buddha explains the problem, the cause of that problem, the elimination of it, and the path forward. But then once you understand that, you go a level deeper and understand the three poisons, or the three unwholesome roots, or the three fires. And that's what I'm going to share with you guys today. So this explains why the unenlightened mind experiences what it experiences and how it makes decisions in the way that it makes decisions. It leads to what's referred to as unwholesome karma. Some people have heard the word karma. This word karma is from the Sanskrit language. From the Pali language, which the original teachings of the Buddha are in, this is the word that we use called karma. If this translated to just one English word, I would just use that word. It would be much easier for people, but it doesn't translate to just one English word, so I need to use this word karma. What karma means is it means cause and effect, or action and result. It's not punishments and rewards. It's not mystical and magical. It's nothing to believe in. Instead, you can see that anytime you make a wise decision, it produces a wholesome result for you. There's a cause and there's an effect, or there's an action and a result. And then the same thing is true if you make an unwise decision, it's going to produce an unwholesome result for you. This is the unwholesome karma from the unwise decision. So what the natural law of karma is it's functioning at all times. Whether you're aware of this natural law or not, it's affecting you. There's no being that's overseeing this. Again, it's not about punishments and rewards. It's not even about who's at blame or who's at fault. It's a sequence of events that things are occurring when you you make a decision, then there's some result that you experience or some cause and effect. So when you're making decisions, you're going to experience the results of those. So it's your life, it's your decisions, and it's your results. And you'll either experience wholesome or unwholesome karma based on how you make your decision, either wise or unwise. And when you have these pollutions in the mind, which every unenlightened being has, craving, anger, and ignorance, when you're making decisions through these three poisons, you're going to experience unwholesome results because of that. So by learning what these are and uprooting them out of the mind, you can make wiser and wiser decisions, which will produce more and more wholesome results in your life. So it provides a clear description of the problems in the unenlightened mind and what the mind is experiencing on a day-to-day basis, and how to eradicate these from the mind, and then how to experience more and more peace and more joy in one's life. We refer to the three poisons or the three unwholesome roots or the three fires, but in a more detailed sense, there's something called the 10 fetters. The 10 fetters are a more detailed description even than the three unwholesome roots or the three fires. What the 10 fetters are, these are the 10 individual problems that the Buddha discovered in the unenlightened mind. They're referred to as fetters because during ancient times, if somebody was a prisoner, they would put a fetter around their ankle in order to keep them trapped and confined in a certain area. Nowadays, we would put somebody into a jail cell. But back then, they would put a shackle around your ankle with a chain and a ball, and this would keep a prisoner trapped in a certain area. So this is what was called a fetter. So the Buddha referred to these 10 fetters as keeping the mind trapped in the unenlightened state. And it's when you understand these 10 fetters and you eradicate them from the mind, that the mind will experience more and more peace and joy until ultimately getting to this enlightened mental state. So the three unwholesome roots or the three fires or these three poisons are kind of bubbling that up, bubbling the 10 fetters up to a little bit of a higher level so that you can understand what's going on in the mind from a little bit of a higher level. So you've got the Four Noble Truths, which gives you a window into the unenlightened mind. You've got the three poisons, which kind of takes that a level deeper and kind of broadens your understanding. And then you've got the 10 fetters, which is the ultimate detail of what's going on in the unenlightened mind. So these three poisons are going to explain to you the problems that you experience in your day-to-day lives. And you wouldn't be able to eliminate your problems if you didn't understand what was actually causing them and what was the root of them. So that's why we call them the three unwholesome roots, because this is the root of all unwholesome things that are being experienced in the world. And then the antidotes or the solutions or the remedies to these are often referred to as the three wholesome roots, because you're eliminating the unwholesome roots and you're bringing in the wholesome roots in order to fully transform the mind. So what I'm going to share with you now is kind of these three poisons or these three unwholesome roots from a high level, and then we're going to go into each one individual in detail so that you can understand them individually. So there's craving, anger, and ignorance, and this is the way that they're usually referred to. And this word ignorance is kind of like a derogatory word nowadays. You know, a Buddha, an enlightened being, wouldn't talk to somebody in a demeaning or degrading way. I still use this word ignorance because that's what other people use, and it kind of helps you if you learn from other teachers to understand how to plug it in. But in reality, I usually like to use the phrase, the unknowing of true reality, or misunderstanding or confusion. That's a better way to think of this rather than ignorance, which is kind of demeaning and degrading way to think. Instead, you can think about that particular poison as the unknowing of true reality. So craving, anger, and ignorance is the way that I use to refer to these three poisons, but you'll hear other ways too. Some people use greed, hatred, and delusion, or you might hear desire, ill will, and confusion. These are different ways that people are referring to these three poisons or these three unwholesome roots or these three fires. What craving, desire is, this is where the mind is longing, yearning, and chasing after the objects of its affection. And if the mind gets what it wants, it gets pleasant feelings. You get happy, excited, elated, thrill, euphoria. But if the mind doesn't get what it wants based in its cravings, then the mind gets angry or sad or frustrated or some other painful feeling. And this is all because of the craving, desire, attachment, the longing, the yearning. Thinking something outside of you is going to provide some kind of lasting satisfaction. It's like the next new shiny object waiting around the corner is going to provide some lasting satisfaction, so the mind chases after it. It's kind of like you're walking in the mall and you see that brand new pair of shoes and you're like, oh yes, brand new pair of shoes. That's what I want. That's what I want. Yes, brand new pair of shoes. I need that so badly. And then if you go in the store and they have your shoes, you get so happy, you get so excited. But then if you go in and they don't have your shoes, you might get frustrated or irritated or annoyed, because the mind is basing its inner feelings on some craving, desire, attachment, this longing and yearning. And it could be other things too. It's not just a pair of shoes. It could be your bank account. It could be any number of things that you might be longing and yearning for to be a certain way. And when things are that way, you get happy. And when they're not that way, you'll get sad or frustrated. This is because of craving, desire, attachment. And then one of those painful feelings that are arising because of the craving, desire, attachment is the anger, the bitterness, the hostility, all this, animosity or aggression or hostility that comes up in the mind. And now through your intentions, your speech, and your actions, you might be bitter and harsh and hostile to others, because the unenlightened mind thinks that the problem that you're experiencing with those painful feelings, it thinks that it's coming from something external. You might think that mom or dad are the ones who are making you angry, or brothers and sisters, or coworkers, or your boss, or your friends, or other family members. If you think they're the ones who are making you angry, you might end up being bitter and harsh and hostile towards them, because when the anger is arising, the mind feels uncomfortable with those painful feelings. So you might decide to push these people away. You might have pushed friends or family members away from you, thinking that that's going to solve the problem. But that doesn't solve the problem. When you push people away or you push a situation away, it doesn't solve the problem, because you'll just get irritated or annoyed or frustrated about something else, because that's not the real problem. The real problem is the craving, desire, attachment. That's the real cause of what's going on. So as long as you're pushing people away or you're pushing a situation away, you're not actually solving the root problem in the mind. Or, as I mentioned, the second thing that the unenlightened mind will do when it falsely understands the problem is it will become bitter and harsh and hostile towards other people and your intentions, your speech, and your actions. And now people might choose to leave out of your life because they're not interested in being around the bitterness and harshness and hostility. And this is the mind once again misunderstanding what the real problem is and what the cause of that problem is. The mind is perceiving or misunderstanding the problem as being something external, so that's why it's bitter and harsh and hostile to this person, almost feeling justified in your anger, like this person deserves it. And this is the mind trying to fear this person into doing things your way, because the mind thinks, if I can just get my cravings fulfilled, if people will just do things my way, everything will be perfect. And then the third thing that the unenlightened mind will do when this anger is arising is it will tend to put its expectations on other people. It'll try to pressure or force people to do things your way. And then when the mind's doing that, the people feel pressured and they might choose to leave out of your life. So the mind might be trying to convince other people to do things your way. It's trying to get its cravings fulfilled. Those longing, that yearning, the mind's trying to get people to do things your way. Because when people do things your way, you get happy or excited. But when people don't do things your way, you'll get angry or frustrated or bitter or harsh. And you're not a bad person that this is going on. This is what every unenlightened mind is experiencing. And it's because of this third poison that these other two actually continue to exist in the mind. This third poison, referred to as ignorance or delusion, I prefer to use the unknowing of true reality or confusion or misunderstanding. This is where the unenlightened mind just doesn't understand what it doesn't understand. It lacks wisdom. It has this confusion or this misperceptions of true reality. It doesn't understand that your mind is causing your own discontent feelings. The mind in the unenlightened state firmly believes that other people are causing you to be angry. We've been in arguments throughout our life where we're adamantly advocating and trying to force the other person to agree that they are doing something wrong. And it's because of what they're doing that is causing you to be angry. The unenlightened mind firmly believes this, that something outside of you is causing you to be angry. But in reality, it's this ignorance or this unknowing of true reality, this confusion or misunderstanding that's in there, that the unenlightened mind just doesn't understand what it doesn't understand. It doesn't understand that it's really craving, this longing, yearning, this chasing after things, wanting things to be a certain way. That when the mind is having those cravings, that's what's causing those painful feelings. It's not something external. So as long as these three poisons are in the mind, then they'll continue to exist and the mind will continue to experience difficulties over and over and over again. You'll experience broken relationships. You'll experience difficulty challenges in having a boyfriend or girlfriend or husband or wife. You'll have challenges with your parents and your siblings and your boss and your coworkers. Things will annoy you and bother you, but this is your own mind that's causing this. And the more that you understand that it's your own mind that's causing this, then you can actually solve it. But as long as you continue to believe that it's something external, then you will continue to have these problems over and over, where you'll continue to experience the anger and the sadness and frustration and all these other discontent feelings. But when you start to understand that it's your own mind that's causing this because of the three poisons, and you start implementing the solutions to fix it, then you can actually get to a real solution. And this is why your mind will start experiencing the peace and the joy that'll start shining through, and you'll see more and more of the qualities of the enlightened mind shining through. So it's because of ignorance that craving and anger continues to exist in the mind. If it wasn't for this unknowing of true reality, you would have already eradicated the craving and anger. The mind would be completely peaceful and joyful. You wouldn't have any kind of issues in your life. You would have harmonious relationships with everyone around you. But when these three poisons are in the mind, you're going to be hindered and have difficulties having harmonious relationships with everyone around you. So this path to enlightenment is to purify the mind of these three poisons so that you can get to the peace and to the joy. And you don't need to go out into the world and train other people to do things your way. You only need to train your own mind, because that's what you have complete control over. You don't have complete control over what other people are doing, because they're making their own individual decisions. But you do have control over your own ability to make decisions. So the decision to learn and practice and develop your mind to eradicate these is what's going to produce the peace and the joy in the mind. So now I'm going to go through each one of these individually and explain them in more detail. And I'm going to explain the solutions and the remedies and how to actually fix them, because this is part of the path to enlightenment. Yesterday, I taught the core central teaching that leads to enlightenment, which is the Eightfold Path. That's the core central teaching of the Buddha, and everything else plugs into this. So that's what an individual would need to learn in order to get to enlightenment. And this is plugging into the Eightfold Path to show you the various tools and techniques that the Buddha taught that plug into this Eightfold Path to be able to help you to eradicate these from the mind. But it's this that is kind of inside the mind that the Buddhist teachings are actively working to eliminate. So this craving, desire, attachment, wants, expectations, the clinging, the holding, the grasping. This is the mind thinking that something outside of you is going to provide some kind of lasting satisfaction. So the mind chases it and chases it and chases it and chases it. The mind thinks that the next new shiny object waiting around the corner is going to provide lasting satisfaction. The mind has almost this unquenchable thirst that it just wants more and more and more and more and more. So if you might get a job and you're making a certain amount of money, when you get that job and you initially get it, you might be so happy. You might be so excited. You're making maybe $30,000 a year. You may be so excited. But then it kind of fades away over time, that the happiness fades away. And now that 30,000 isn't enough anymore. You want 40 or 45 or 50. So the mind chases and chases and chases and chases and chases that. And then finally it gets what it wants, and it gets happy for a period of time. But then that happiness fades away, and now it wants more and more and more and more. This is the unquenchable thirst. And it's not just about money. Some people crave money, some people don't. It could be clothes, it could be jewelry, it could be a new boyfriend, a new girlfriend, it could be any number of things. It could be a mobile phone, it could be a computer, it could be board games, it could be any number of things where the mind is just chasing and chasing and chasing and chasing and wanting more and more and more and more and more. So if the mind is having this craving, desire, attachment, if it gets what it wants, it gets happy and it gets excited, it gets elated. But that's what's called a conditioned feeling, that you've based your inner feeling on some condition. For example, if it's sunny outside, you might get happy, you might get excited, and it's based on this condition that it's sunny outside. But the sun is impermanent. So that means your feelings of happiness are also impermanent. So as soon as the sun changes and now it's raining, you might be sad or frustrated or irritated or annoyed. And this is because of the mind's craving, that if it gets what it wants, which is the sun, it will get happy. But if it doesn't get what it wants, it gets sad or frustrated or irritated. And it's not just happening with the weather for some people. As I mentioned, it can be your bank account. If your bank account is this balance, you'll be happy. But if it's this balance, you might be sad or frustrated or irritated or annoyed. If mom and dad do this, you'll be happy. If mom and dad do this, you'll be frustrated or irritated or annoyed, because the mind's craving, it's wanting, it's longing, it's yearning, and it's forming its inner feelings based on some condition, wanting things to be a certain way in the world, longing, yearning for things to be a certain way in the world. And as long as the mind gets what it wants, it gets happy. But that happiness is dissatisfying because it's temporary. It fades away. Because the happiness is based on some condition, when that condition changes, because nothing in the world around you is permanent. So if you form your inner feelings based on some condition, when that condition changes, your mind's going to end up in the sadness or frustration or some other discontent feeling. So this is essentially describing how the mind goes up and down and up and down, up and down throughout your life. You'll have different periods of time where you'll be a little bit peaceful, you'll be calm perhaps, maybe like right now, maybe you're a little bit calm, but it's only a matter of time before the mind becomes frustrated or agitated or annoyed or uncomfortable for some reason or another. And this is the mind's craving or desire or attachment that's causing it. But you can remedy this and you can eliminate it from the mind. Again, you're not a bad person, you haven't done anything wrong. Every single person who's ever been born has experienced the exact same thing. Every single person who's born is unenlightened and their mind has these cravings. So when you eradicate these from the mind through using the tools and techniques that the Buddha teaches, then you can experience the liberation, that the mind is not discontent, it's not shaken up, that you can get to unconditioned happiness. You can get to unconditioned joy, where there doesn't need to be any condition that is met in order to be happy. So in the unenlightened state, if you come together with a boyfriend or girlfriend, you might get really happy and you get really excited with this new relationship because somebody's showing you affection. Maybe you're going out to dinner. Maybe you're going to the movies. Maybe you're going to the park. Maybe you're having intimate contact. Maybe you're having long, wonderful discussions about different things in the world. So you feel all these pleasant feelings in this new relationship. But then when the relationship is over, then you're sad or frustrated or annoyed. It's not the love that is causing that. Love is a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well, active goodwill towards others. What's causing your mind to be sad or frustrated or grieve in that situation is that the mind is craving permanence, wanting things to be permanent. And the mind wants this relationship to be permanent, but yet this relationship is impermanent. Everything around you is impermanent. So as long as the mind is craving for this relationship to be permanent, when you experience the impermanent nature of this relationship, that it's temporary, then your feeling of happiness is also going to fade away. Because if you form your inner feelings based on this relationship, now when you're together, you'll be happy and you'll be excited. But then when you're apart, you'll feel miserable, you'll feel lonely or bored or sad, or you'll miss this person. That's because the mind's holding on and craving permanence. The same thing happens if you've had a grandparent or a parent or a brother or sister that passed away. If you grieved, you're not a bad person, you haven't done anything wrong. It's just that the mind's holding on to grandma or grandpa or mom or dad or brothers and sisters, wanting them to be permanent, when in reality they are impermanent. So this craving in the mind's holding on and holding on and holding on, wanting things to be a certain way. And the way that we remedy this is, like I said, through the Eightfold Path, but part of the teachings that are really targeting this craving, desire, attachment the most is breathing mindfulness meditation and generosity. That meditation we just did this morning, when you're focused on the breath, the goal isn't to eliminate your thoughts. So if you had a bunch of thoughts during your meditation, this is completely normal. Or if you had a thought and you indulged in that thought for a period of time, and then you decided, oh yeah, that's right, I'm meditating, let me let it go and come back. This is completely normal. That what you're doing in that meditation is you're focusing on the breath and training the mind to have awareness of mind and concentration. These are the two wholesome qualities that you're developing, is mindfulness or awareness of mind and concentration, being able to focus on a single object. And then when the mind moves off the breath, you're training the mind to let go, to let go, to let go. So if 20, 30, 50 times during your meditation you had to let go, let go, let go, let go, this is actually very good for your mind, because the craving, desire, attachment, the mind's holding on. It doesn't want to let go. It's holding on. It has this unquenchable thirst. So you're going to need to train your mind to let go and not hold on to things tightly. So this meditation is there to be able to help you. If you gradually, steady, and consistently develop your mind with this meditation, it'll train your mind to let go. And you'll see you won't have these strong feelings and these strong emotions where the anger and the sadness and the frustration is coming up in the mind, because you can gradually train your mind with this meditation to let go and not hold on to things so tightly. And then we also use generosity. This is the giving and sharing of more than is strictly required in any given situation, such as your time, your effort, your energy, or your resources, where you don't have any expectation of wanting anything at all from another person. Because when you're practicing generosity, you're living open-handedly. You're letting go. Where when you have craving, desire, attachment in your mind, the mind's going to be interested to hold on. It's going to want to hold on to things. My phone, my computer, my money, my boyfriend, my girlfriend, my mom, my clothes, my jewelry, mine. But when you can practice generosity and you can live open-handedly, it trains the mind to let go. So the Buddha taught this generosity as a way of giving and sharing and training the mind to let go. But you're going to need to do that without any expectation of anything in return. And just like meditation, frequency of practicing generosity is actually better than the amount. So if you were to say, share a little bit of food each day with different people around you, that would be better than like once every 3 months going and giving a big meal to somebody. So you would like to integrate this generosity into your life where you're gradually, slowly but surely, each day sharing a little bit here and there. You could even just share your time when you're walking into a store and you're opening the door for somebody. You could let somebody else go in before you. This is generosity. But remember, generosity is without any expectation of anything in return. If you stand there holding the door with an expectation that somebody's going to say thank you, and they don't say thank you, you'll be frustrated, you'll be agitated, you'll be annoyed because they didn't give you what you wanted, which was that thank you. So when you're practicing generosity, you need to do it without any expectation of anything in return, just because it's enhancing the quality of your mind. And this can be your time, your effort, your energy, your resources. You can share any number of things with the people around you. And this will help you to train your mind to let go and eliminate these cravings. So with breathing, mindfulness, meditation, and generosity, you'll train your mind to have less and less cravings, and then you'll see that the mind will reside more and more peaceful as you make your way to enlightenment. But you're going to need the Eightfold Path to fully train the mind to be able to get to enlightenment. It wouldn't just be these two. So let me pause and see what questions you guys have on this first poison of craving. Remember, here at the temple, if you could use these microphones, and those of you guys online, if you could put your questions into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or in Zoom, you can raise your hand electronically and ask any questions that you like. Do you guys have any questions here or any online? Okay, we have a bunch of comments here. Through your intentions, your speech, and your actions. This is where the mind is having that hostility, the aggression, and you might vent that towards somebody else. This is like an animal trying to fear another animal into doing what you want it to do. You're not an animal any longer. You're a human being. You can function with wisdom where you don't need to be bitter and harsh and hostile towards others. An animal, if you come into its territory or you do something that it doesn't like, it'll be bitter and harsh and hostile. It'll growl. It'll show its teeth to you, right? It'll roar, and it'll try to fear this other animal into doing what it wants it to do. But us human beings, we don't need to do that. We can be polite, kind, friendly, and respectful when we train our mind to do so. But you don't necessarily know how to do that, and you're challenged to do that as long as these three poisons are in the mind. So we don't need to be bitter and harsh and hostile to people, because this is just going to damage your relationships and cause difficulties in your life. And instead, you can learn how to live harmoniously with others, but you're going to need to arise wisdom to be able to learn how to do that. Because when this anger is arising, the mind feels uncomfortable with those painful feelings. And because the mind lacks wisdom, it thinks that these painful feelings are coming from something external. So this is why when the anger is arising, the mind will tend to push people away, or it'll push the situation away. And you know that doesn't work, and it doesn't solve the problem, because you just get agitated or annoyed about something else. It's just a matter of time. You might push that person away and think that you solved the problem, but just wait a few days or a few weeks, and next thing you know, you're going to be bitter and harsh and hostile about something else, or you'll be annoyed or frustrated about something else. It's just a matter of time. That's how you know that that person isn't the problem, or that situation isn't the problem. So pushing them away doesn't actually solve it. Or if you're bitter, harsh, and hostile through your intentions, speech, and actions, then that person might choose on their own to just leave out of your life because of that hostility or that bitterness. Every single one of us have probably lost relationships because of that in our past, that we've done that with the lack of wisdom, where we've been bitter and harsh and hostile in a certain situation, and someone chose to leave out of our life because of it. We damaged a relationship. That's the result of our decisions of having been bitter and harsh and hostile. Or we might put our expectations on people. We might try to convince mom or dad to do things our way, or brothers and sisters, or life partners, or children, or friends or family. We might try to put our expectations and try to control them to do things our way. And as long as we're doing that, this person's going to feel pressured, and you're going to get happy when they do things your way. But when they don't do things your way, you'll get sad or frustrated or irritated or annoyed or some other discontent feeling. So when this anger is arising, if you don't understand that the true problem that is causing this problem is the craving, desire, attachment, when this anger is arising, you either push people away, be bitter, harsh, and hostile, or put your expectations on people. But you can actually transform this in your mind through loving kindness meditation. Loving kindness is the exact opposite of the anger and the hostility and the hatred and the ill will. So if you're training your mind in what's called loving kindness meditation, this is where you're training your mind to have a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well, where you have active goodwill towards others, so that when you're training your mind in meditation this way, it's like filling up your gas tank. And then you go out into the world and you practice through your intentions, your speech, and your actions to be loving and kind to others. Where when there's craving in the mind, it'll be really hard for you to be able to do that. But if you can be working to eliminate your cravings, desires, attachments, and you can be working to eliminate this anger, hatred, and ill will, by arising this loving kindness, you'll be able to go out into the world and be more loving and kind with people. And when you're more loving and kind and you're putting that out, that's what will come back to you. But as long as you're putting out the bitterness or the hostility or the aggression, that's what's going to come back to you, because that's what you're putting out. So you're going to need to transform your own mind and train it to be more loving and kind in your relationships. And even when other people are being angry and bitter and harsh and hostile, you're going to need to learn that you being bitter, harsh, and hostile back isn't actually solving the problem. So you can transform your mind with this loving kindness meditation. What the mind does when it has craving, desire, attachment in the mind, when somebody's bitter and harsh and hostile with you, you might go down this well-worn path of anger. It's really easy to go down that path because it's a well-worn path that you've been down many times. And you've got the bushes pushed back, the stickers pushed back, the grass is all worn out, and you might go down this path of anger. But we know where that path leads. It leads to broken relationships and difficulties and struggles in our life. So what you're doing with this loving kindness meditation is you're forging a new path. You're creating a new pathway. It's like getting out your machete and cutting through the bushes and the stickers. And that's why it's challenging at first. When you first start practicing this meditation and you first start going out into the world and practicing loving kindness with people around you, it can be quite challenging because it's this new pathway. You need to essentially rewire the mind. But eventually, if you get out your machete enough and you cut down these bushes and stickers and you make this new path and you keep going down this path, now this old path will get overgrown. The bushes and the stickers and the grass will all grow back. By the time you get this new path created, your mind won't go down this path anymore. It's physically impossible for an enlightened being to ever get angry, to ever be bitter and harsh and hostile. It's physically impossible because you've got this well-worn path of loving kindness to be able to now go down this path. Where when you have craving, desire, attachment in the mind, you'll go down this path of anger. So you're going to need to rewire your mind to practice loving kindness. And I needed to do this too. As I was growing up, I had a lot of resentment in my mind. I had a lot of hostility in my mind. When I was growing up, I had a lot of resentment towards my mom for things that occurred in our life. And when we would get together, it was only a matter of time before either her or I would pop off like fireworks, and we would be really angry and bitter and harsh with each other. But then as I slowly started training my mind with meditation and started rewiring the mind, I started doing something different. Right? When I was growing up, I always wanted my mom to change. I always wanted her to change because she was, in my mind, the problem, right? But I didn't understand that I was actually causing some issues, right? She had her own issues too, but I had issues in my own mind. So when mom would pick up the rubber ball of anger and hostility and she would throw it around the room, I would pick up the rubber ball of anger and throw it around the room, and she would throw it around the room, and I would throw it around the room. And next thing you know, we've got these rubber balls bouncing all around the room of anger and hostility. But then when I started understanding these teachings and I started doing something different, I could create a different relationship with my mom. When she would pick up the rubber ball of anger and hostility and throw it around the room, I would just watch it and I would just let it roll into the corner and it would lose its energy. Where in the past, I would pick it up and throw it and I would give that ball energy. Where once I started training my mind with loving kindness meditation and rewiring my mind, I started doing something different. Because you can't eliminate someone's anger by you being angry too. You can't eliminate somebody else's anger, but you can't get rid of anger by adding more anger to the fire. So when mom started being bitter and harsh and hostile and angry, I would just let the ball roll to the corner and let it lose its energy. Where in the past, if she was bitter and harsh and hostile, I would be bitter, harsh, and hostile back. But when I started training my mind, I could then do something different. When she would be bitter, harsh, and hostile, and she was on the phone with me, I would say, you know, Mom, I know I used to do this in the past where I was angry and bitter and harsh with you, but I'm going to choose to do something different. I'm going to get off the phone here and let you think about what it is that you just said, and we'll talk another time, Mom. I love you. And I would say goodbye, right? Where in the past, I would sit there and argue and yell at her, and we probably would hang up the phone on each other, who knows what, right? But slowly but surely, when she was being angry and bitter and harsh, I could control my mind more and more, and she could realize that she was being bitter and harsh and hostile, and David was now being calm. And now I might wait a month or 2 or 3 before we talked again. And then we would talk again. We would talk for a while, a few weeks. We'd be talking. And then at some point, she would be bitter and harsh and hostile again. I would say, Mom, I value this relationship more than being bitter and harsh and hostile to you. I'm going to get off the phone and let you think about what it is that you just said. Because your goal isn't to change other people. Your goal is for you to do something different. If your life has any kind of bitterness in it, it's kind of like a log jam. And you need to pull out these logs. You need to pull out the anger. You need to pull out the aggression. You need to pull out the hostility, and realize by you continuing to do those things, it's not going to help your relationships. So loving kindness meditation and practicing loving kindness in daily life is what's going to help you to be able to do that. You can rewire the mind and go down this new path where your mind can be loving and kind and gentle to others. It's like filling up your gas tank with this loving kindness meditation and then going out into the world and being loving and kind with others. And the more that you do that, you'll see that that's what comes back to you. And you'll need to slowly transform your mind to be able to do that, where you ultimately can be loving and kind with everybody and anybody. It doesn't mean that you choose to be around people who are bitter, harsh, and hostile. You might still choose to not be around those types of individuals. But when those people are being bitter, harsh, and hostile, maybe it's the first time you met them, your mind won't be shaken up by it. Right now, if you have a craving for everyone to be polite, kind, friendly, and respectful to you, when someone's disrespectful, you might get angry or frustrated. But you can train your mind to let go of the craving. You can train your mind to let go of the anger, so that now you'll be able to be peaceful and joyful. Do you guys have any questions on this poison, the anger? Yes, ma'am. If you could get a microphone here. And then for those of you guys online, if you would like to ask questions, again, you can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, and I'll be able to help you here.
Hello.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, thanks for the explanation. I heard from you that we should treat other people kind and polite, but actually I will see it as behavior part. But from sometimes what happens to me will be I'm polite to the other person, but at the same time I feel annoyed. I feel inner annoyed. This is my mindset part. So sometimes that means that your behavior part is different with your mindset part. And how can I deal with this? For example, maybe I'm busy with doing some work by myself, but my colleagues just want to ask some questions. Of course, I want to be polite to them, and I also do like that. But for the mindset, I still feel super annoyed. Sure. So it's struggling sometimes for this part.
Yeah, this is what the mind experiences on its way to enlightenment, that initially, before someone gets on the path to enlightenment, they can be outwardly frustrated, right? They're not only inwardly frustrated, but then it's showing through their intentions, their speech, and their actions. But then as you learn and practice on the path, you get to this period where you're kind of quietly frustrated, or maybe outwardly you can show like a smile and you can be friendly, but inwardly you're kind of annoyed. The underlying cause is still the same. It's craving, desire, attachment. Your mind is craving to do that particular thing. It doesn't want to be interrupted, but the mind needs to be able to understand that when you're working, occasionally someone's going to walk by and say something, or somebody's going to ask for your attention. And then you can just pause what you're doing. If you need to address them, or if you can't address them and you're like, hey, I'll come talk to you in about 30 minutes. I'm busy right here. I'll see you in a moment, because you can't control what other people do. They're going to come by. But if you have a craving that nobody should bother me, I'm going to focus on this intensely and, leave me alone. You can't control other people coming to see you or checking in on you. So you're going to need to let go of that craving. And then that's what's going to eliminate the annoyment. And the way to let go of the craving is to train with breathing mindfulness meditation and be practicing generosity as well. And that's what's going to help you, because people are going to come by and interrupt what you're doing. You just need to eliminate your craving. So when that occurs, you can stop what you're doing, address that for however long, whether it's a few seconds or a few minutes, and then focus back on what you're doing. And then you can maintain your joy and your peacefulness. Yes, you're welcome. Any other questions here or anything online that somebody might like to ask? Okay, I'm not seeing any questions here. Not seeing any online either. So let's go to the next one. So this craving, this anger that's in the mind, this is all being caused by this third poison, or this third unwholesome root. This is called ignorance, or the unknowing of true reality. This is where the mind lacks wisdom. It just doesn't understand what it doesn't understand. It has certain misperceptions about the world. It lacks wisdom. The mind is having this unknowing of true reality. It doesn't understand that its own mind is causing its discontentedness. The mind will firmly believe that somebody outside is causing your discontent feelings, or some situation. And as long as the mind has this lack of wisdom, this unknowing of true reality, it'll continue to stay stuck in this continuous cycle of experiencing anger and sadness and frustration over and over and over again. So it's only when you arise wisdom, which is the antidote to this ignorance, that you will then be able to experience the peace and the joy, the liberation, the freedom from these strong feelings. So this is why somebody would come to the temple, or meet with a teacher, or read books about the Buddhist teachings, or develop their mind on this path, is that they're looking to acquire wisdom. And that's why I start out with each one of my new students and say, don't believe anything that I say, because belief isn't going to help you get to wisdom. You're going to need to arise wisdom in your mind in order to get to the point where you eradicate this ignorance. And the very first wisdom that you need is the Four Noble Truths, to be able to understand what craving, desire, attachment is, to understand how your mind is causing your own discontent feelings, and then understand the Eightfold Path to be able to eradicate them through the tools and the techniques that the Buddha shared. This right here isn't the complete path. This is just one aspect of the path. There's an entire path that the Buddha shared called the Eightfold Path, which are 8 individual factors that you need to gain wisdom about and dial this into into your life more and more closely. It's almost like if you're trying to get a better sound out of your speakers, you would dial these 8 dials in closer and closer. These 8 factors that the Buddha taught are 8 things that you're dialing into your life closer and closer and closer in order to get a better and better quality mind so that your mind can perform more optimally. Because when you have pollution in your mind, not only are you going to be experiencing the things that I'm talking about here, but you're going to experience a lack of concentration. You're going to experience a lack of memory. You're going to experience some grumpiness and irritability. You're going to experience difficulties in your day-to-day life. You're going to find that it's challenging for you to do certain tasks because the mind is polluted. You're not going to have focus and clarity of your mind. But when you eradicate these pollutions, you'll have focus and clarity and deep memory. You'll be able to function in your relationships with ease. So this ignorance is in there, keeping the mind trapped, because as long as it's ignorant or it's unknowing of true reality, or this confusion or this misunderstanding or this misperception about what's really causing the problems, then the problems will continue. So the teachings of the Buddha, as I mentioned, they're not about a bunch of beliefs and believing a bunch of things. There's no rites and rituals and ceremonies and worship in the teachings of the Buddha. Even if you've been to temples, even if you've been to places that are doing rites, rituals, ceremonies, and worship, and they're attributing them to the Buddha actually never taught any rites, rituals, ceremonies, or worship, because those things don't lead to wisdom. You need to be able to learn, to reflect, to independently verify the teachings, and then practice them. And as you're integrating them into your life and you're training your mind, this is where you're uprooting the causes and conditions that are producing these discontent feelings. But you wouldn't be able to do that if you didn't have wisdom. So this path to enlightenment, it's not believe, 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 and hope something good happens when you die. It's about learning now, reflecting now, practicing the teachings now, integrating them into your life, and then you'll see the results now in this life, that your mind's becoming more peaceful and joyful, and your relationships are becoming more peaceful and joyful too, more fulfilling, more satisfying. So by transforming this ignorance, by learning things like the 3 universal truths, the 4 noble truths, the Eightfold Path, the 5 precepts, the Brahma Viharas, the natural law of Karma, the 7 factors of enlightenment, learning extensive meditation training, eliminating the 10 fetters. These are all things that I teach as the various courses and retreats that I share. You can learn what all these teachings are, and then as you're gradually, slowly learning them, you're reflecting on them to independently verify them, and you're practicing them. And you can learn here at the temple. You can learn through our live stream or through Zoom. We have various videos and books and audiobooks. All this stuff is available for you at no cost that you can learn and gradually develop on the path to enlightenment. But it's each individual's choice to decide that they're done with the anger. They're done with the sadness. They're tired of the broken relationships. They're done with all these difficulties and struggles in the life. And you're ready to do a bit of work in order to gradually train your mind to get to the peace and joy. And if you gradually train your mind, you'll gradually see that the condition of the mind will improve. And then you'll have much more satisfying and fulfilling personal and professional relationships. And you'll be able to conduct your life at ease, just like you did with the natural law of gravity. You can now conduct your life with ease. And just like with these natural laws of existence, you're going to need to awaken to that wisdom so that you can gradually develop this wisdom and now navigate the world with ease, the same way you do with the natural law of gravity. So this is everything that I have to share with you guys on this topic. Do you have any questions on the craving, anger, or ignorance, either here at the temple or online? No questions? Let's see if we have anything online. Okay, so just to kind of give you guys a little bit of a summary of what we just talked about, is we talked about the 3 poisons, the 3 unwholesome roots, or the 3 fires. These are referred to as craving, anger, and ignorance, or the unknowing of true reality. Sometimes referred to as greed, hatred, and delusion, or desire, ill will, and confusion. The antidotes, or the solutions, are referred to as the 3 wholesome roots. This is generosity, loving kindness, and wisdom. These are the exact opposites of craving, anger, and ignorance. So when you're making decisions through generosity, loving kindness, and wisdom, it will produce wholesome results in your life. But when you're making decisions through craving, anger, and ignorance, it's going to produce unwholesome results. Those are the unwholesome roots. So you're uprooting the unwholesome roots and you're bringing in the wholesome roots. And this is what's going to ultimately get the mind to the enlightened mental state, that you'll completely eradicate the causes and conditions that are producing these discontent feelings. And as you would like help to do that, I'm here to help you, and I'll share everything with you at no cost, whether it's books, audiobooks, videos, podcasts, whether it's personal guidance, you'd like to sit down and talk about certain situations you're encountering and how to apply the teachings in your life, whether it's here in Chiang Mai or whether you'd like to meet online through Zoom. I have all the ability for you to be able to get close to the teachings and understand them and get access to them. You just need to decide for yourself that you're done with the anger and the sadness and frustration, and you'd like to experience this better way of life that the Buddha taught. So as you would like to learn more, you're welcome to do that. In fact, I'm going to take a break here in a moment, and after the break, we're going to come back and I'm going to share what's called the 5 precepts. These are 5 impactful decisions that you can make either wisely or unwisely, and they'll either lead to wholesome results or unwholesome results in your life. And I'm going to use the original words of the Buddha to be able to help you see what he taught about the 5 precepts. If you've ever learned that the Buddha taught no killing, no stealing, no sexual misconduct, no lying, and no intoxicants, this isn't actually what the Buddha taught. He doesn't teach that way. He doesn't have these rules or commandments. He doesn't have this black and white. Instead, you'll see the language that he uses. It's much more illuminating, and it helps you to understand how to practice something and why you should be practicing it as well. So I'm going to use the original words of the Buddha, and I'm going to apply it to day-to-day life that you experience in day-to-day life, so you can see how to integrate these teachings into your life. Because what I typically do is I teach to a certain level of detail, and then as students have questions, we go deeper down into it. So as you have questions about these teachings or any others that you might learn with me, you're welcome to always reach out to get help. So after our break, I'm going to teach the 5 precepts. This is going to help you to be able to learn about these wise decisions that you can make that are going to lead to wholesome results in your life. And then we're going to ultimately take a lunch break for about an hour and a half, and then we're going to come back and I'm going to share walking meditation with students and teach you how to do walking meditation. This is really helpful if you have an overactive mind or you have a lot of energy in your mind, you find that you have a lot of anxiety and stress. This walking meditation is really good because it helps to calm the mind down and kind of get some of that hyperactivity out of the mind. And then, of course, tomorrow and the next day, we have classes and courses as well. We're even doing a tour on Friday where I'm going to take students out to 2 other temples and tour them around. So you guys are welcome to stick around, or if you're planning on leaving and heading out, that's fine too. But if you'd like to come back after a break, right now it's 10:30. I'm going to start back up at 10:45, give you guys a 15-minute break. And if you'd like to come back, I'll be starting at 10:45. So enjoy your break, and perhaps we'll see you afterwards or some other time in the future. Have a very wonderful and lovely rest of your day. We'll see you next time. Sawadee krap. Sawadee krap. Sawadee krap. Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.